Hi, Maria. We're showing a picture of you, which is a telephone with three brackets around it. I'm sorry you couldn't join us visually.
Uh, yes, I'm sorry as well. This is the first time this has happened, and I'm not understanding why. But one of the things that you learn in the public sector is when things don't work one way, you try it another. So I thank God for the option of being able to call in.
Yeah, that's good. And as long as we get your ideas. So let's just start out right from the beginning. This is going to be an interesting
Sure,
scene because County Commission District 7, there's no
correct.
incumbent. You've got Maria Scruggs running against Renee Flowers. So Maria, let's give me a little bit about your background. I know who you are. People in the media know who you are. But just describe what your background is and what your qualifications are for running for the County Commission.
Sure. I haven't, of course, attended local schools. I'm a native of St. Petersburg, graduate of Northeast High, go Vikings, and went on to Florida State where I earned a bachelor's in criminology and have a master's in public administration from Grand Canyon University. I have a depth of experience in professional and leadership development. I'm a certified public manager in the state of Florida. And more importantly, I have over 40 years of public sector experience at various levels, running in law enforcement, community corrections, which is where I am now, public housing, healthcare, and community and neighborhood development. And I think that those are the things from the professional side that has certainly prepared me to serve on the county commission. And then there's the people side. I've been an advocate for people for as long as I can remember, starting at Southside Junior High as the first African-American president of student government. And I think that was embedded in me coming from a family legacy of service. I'm the great niece of the late Reverend Enid Davis. And through our church and through our family, our whole life was about service. It just was not an option. It was something that I was born into, and I have served. I've served in various capacities, and not only served, but I certainly prepared myself professionally to deal with the complexity of serving people. When you look at all the various career options, it's probably one of the most difficult, but certainly one that you certainly value when you're able to see that you've helped move the needle in some type of social, economic, or political issue.
Now, you may find this interesting, and I talked about this with a couple of the other candidates, is that where I shop, it happens to be Publix, people, mistakenly or not, still think I'm in TV, and they always want to share their opinions with me. So needless to say, trips to the grocery store are always 45 minutes to an hour long. So this past week, just for the heck of it, I asked 6 people, and I thought it was a pretty good mix: a man, a woman, African American, Hispanic, young and old, kind of. And I said, "Can you name one of your Pinellas County commissioners?" And I was surprised to find that none of them could even name one. Now, that's not to disparage that in other communities they might be well known, but is it important that people know the names of their commissioners, or do they just not know the names of their commissioners because they're pretty much satisfied with the way things are? I don't know which it is. What do you think?
Well, Al, I can tell you what I know for sure. I don't know if you remember, but I ran against Commissioner Welch in 2012. And one of the primary reasons that I ran against Commissioner Welch, and again, it's not trying to disparage anybody, it just becomes a reality, is when I tried to, as I moved about in the community and tried to understand the role and what the roles of the county commissions were, and not only commissions, school board, city council, and I found that the community, including myself, were totally disconnected from our local officials. And as you know, this single member district was created specifically for the purpose of ensuring that African Americans had a representative on the county commission that spoke to the issues in District 7. And I was surprised at that point that while people knew the legacy of the Welch name, they could not readily identify their commissioner. And I just think that and not only in this day and time, but the way you effectively serve people is you've got to know them. People are not a group of numbers and statistics. And, I've spent a lifetime just trying to get to know. I still live in it. I live in the community where I grew up in, and I have watched and experienced the lack of attention at the local level in our community. And so I do believe that I could believe that happened to you while you were in Publix, yes.
So let's talk about District 7 specifically. What is the commission not doing to help people in District 7? Or what could they be doing? I mean, you talked about, keeping in touch. I mean, that's one thing, but I'm talking about materially. What policies need to be enacted that are not being enacted by the commission for District 7?
Well, I think the one thing, and I've had a conversation with Barry Burton and Commissioner Welch about this issue, in my concern in feeling that the county commission has been silent on the issue of Tropicana Field and the Southside CRA. One of the things that I went on record in my capacity as the president of the NAACP, and even before that, was to advocate for the Tropicana Field to be moved back into the Southside CRA, for which it was created. And amazingly, there was silence that the Tropicana was moved into the downtown CRA. I'm endorsed by former state representative Rudy Bradley. And one of the reasons that Representative Bradley stated to me specifically that he is endorsing me is because he did not see District 7 getting the attention for which he created the seat for. And what he had known well was my track record of being specific on issues that impact the community. And the county has a very, very depth of program servicing and budgetary resources that they've implemented. But it appears that South St. Petersburg, outside of a couple of dollars spread here and there has been no strategic engagement with District 7, and that's what I hope to change.
Let me ask you something else, Maria, and I follow the newspapers and you do too. So at the beginning of the process, you came out with a lot of negative comments about the Woodson African American Museum project. Why was that, and how do you feel about that project right now? Because that's a project that would benefit that area in particular.
Well, let's clarify. They were not negative comments. They were true comments. I'm not sure if you are aware, but I'm the former Hope 6 and Supportive Services Director who was responsible in working with the community to develop the concept of an African American museum. That was one of the projects that was under my control at that time. And what the residents wanted was an African American museum. Interestingly enough, when I was no longer there, that whole concept changed, which even on paper, through zoning, the Woodson is not and cannot be zoned as a museum. Secondly, the museum, with it not being zoned as a museum, there was, at the time that I did the public records request, there was not even an attempt to get a rezoning. And what began to happen was, when you look at the activity and you look at the wealth and depth of history in the African American community, it is not represented in the Woodson. That is totally diametrically opposed to what the people wanted. And so the NAACP's position at that point, while we strongly support and know the need of an African American museum, we do not and did not at that point, when I was president, support any effort to mute, minimize, or marginalize the contributions that so many African Americans have given to this community. And those are the kind of what I call face of racism, where when we look at the depth and breadth of museums that we have in St. Pete, that's one of our signatures. When you go into the museum, I was on the Florida Holocaust Museum, because when this project started in Jordan Park, I didn't know anything about managing or building community capacity to have a museum. At that time, went to the Florida Holocaust Museum's director and say, look, this is what the African American community wants to do. I'm the director for the supportive services side of Hope 6. Can you help me? Can you mentor me? He absolutely, and unfortunately had a very untimely death, but I was appointed to the board. And that was for the purpose.
Maria, just because I want to move on to some other issues. So do you support the museum now, as long as the displays are curated in a fashion that reflects what you consider and many other African Americans consider to be the true history of the area?
Let me be clear. I support the creation of an African American museum that represents the contributions of African Americans from St. Petersburg.
Okay, good. So one of the big issues is going to be transportation. In Hillsborough County, what they did was, as you know, the citizens rose up and said, our roads are pathetic. We want to get something done. And they agreed to tax themselves. More than 60% of the people voted in favor of that. It's still in the courts as to who gets to administer that. Would you be in favor of something like that for Pinellas County if the citizens rose up and said, yep, we'll tax ourselves, but you got to improve transportation?
Al, I'm always in support of any initiative that 60% of the citizens say. That is the voice. The voice of the people is their vote. Your prior guest talked about the term limit referendum in 1996, where voters overwhelmingly voted for term limits, and the county commission has yet to insert those term limits into the charter. Absolutely, I would. If the voters of Pinellas says this is what we want for the purpose of fixing our roads, I have no choice as a public servant but to support it.
And let's talk about density. One of the things that developers have always said is you got to have the density in an area to make better use of resources and to allow public transit to be able to move people around and around. Because of COVID-19, do you think we might be rethinking this whole density thing?
Well, Al, absolutely. I think the reality of COVID-19 is going to have us rethinking a whole lot of things, and it's not just density. One of the hardest decisions that this county commission is going to have to face in this year and beyond is the fact that resources are going to be considerably limited. And one of the conversations that I've had with Chris Steinhocker is that this is really the time you need folks on this county commission that can think strategically and act strategically about prioritizing the needs of the people, of the businesses, of the stakeholders, and then developing and prioritizing a plan that is consistent with what we will have to deal with, recognizing that we're going to be facing some serious budget constraints.
Yeah, I think everybody's going to get a wake-up call on this whole COVID thing when it comes to money. Maria, thank you for your time. Morning, everybody. Maria Scruggs, running for County Commission District 7. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us. Even if it was only by audio, you look wonderful, though, okay? Can I tell you that?
Thank you so much.
All right.